So as part of our agenda, we're going to go through a couple of points that we've touched already in a couple of previous webinars already, as well, bringing to you an update on what we have been doing, as well a piece of information on what, how are we performing, and in terms of statistics and future activities. I'll leave you here quickly the QR code, as I mentioned, so that you can access and use Slido to place any question that you may have throughout the presentation. Starting with a couple of key principles with a brief introduction on OMS. So the OMS service supports implementation of ISO IDP in the European Union by providing a single source of validated organization data. This information is aimed to be used as a reference to support EU regulatory activities and other business process. There is a need because there was a need for a better organization data, and to initially build our dictionary, EMA used a couple of internal data sources so that we could starting our dictionary, but we continue improving, and we ask this happens by handling and not only change requests, but by bringing also other systems on board. This is a continuous process, and we count with the support of companies to help us maintaining the most up-to-date data when we talk organization and location data. Starting with our principles. So OMS data is hosted by EMA and is a public dictionary and is accessible, and it can be used by anyone. In this case, EMA and any external user that have access to our OMS portal or by using the API. OMS, as I mentioned, aims to provide a central source of organization data, which consists in a list of organizations and its respective physical locations to be used as a reference and to support any EU regulatory activities. An organization in OMS will be captured as a legal entity and group all its physical locations within a certain jurisdiction, within a certain country. So, for example, if we have an organization that the same name actually exists in two different countries, this will lead to the generation of two organization IDs, one to represent the organization that is located in a certain country. Just one last reference when we talk an organization as a legal entity, because a certain company can have multiple business names, can act under different business names. Just to highlight that in our dictionary, we will be captured the organization name as it is referenced and as it is registered with the local authorities. So the legal name will be maintained as organization name, and any alternative, any business names will be can be captured as alternative name in our OMS dictionary. In OMS, the organization data is structured with unique IDs. There is a unique ID for organization and another for the location to represent the locations. And some of those records are mapped to source systems. You will see in our portal that a couple of records will have for example, the other GMTP site reference code. When we map the data, and coming back to my previous, to what we were discussing previously, that OMS captured the data as a legal entity, we will master the data. So in this case, we had an organization in one of the consuming systems that the name was actually comprised by the legal entity name plus extra details to make reference to manufacturing lines, to provide more detail about when was this record being used. In OMS, because we will master the data and we will maintain it as it is registered with the local authorities, all these records available in one of the source system are now mapped into one single record that will have the organization name as it is registered with the local authorities, as well as all of them will be now mapped to the same location ID. And as you can see, all of them will have, we maintain the source system ID, so that in this case, the other GMDP can receive an updated version of the record in case something changes. Because those IDs are unique, the location ID will also be unique, even if the same physical address is used by different organizations. And I'll leave you here one practical example that we have in our production environment, which is the same street that is being used because it's being used by a different legal entity. For that reason, all of them are maintained and they are managed with one single loc ID, because they all represent a different reality. It's the same physical place, but because they are linked to a different legal entity, it's a different record for us. Now a couple of house rules as well. So in the OMS, there is no differentiation between organization that is used in the human versus veterinary context for us, because we maintain legal entities. We do not do this differentiation at our OMS dictionary level. In the same way that OMS does not define a role that a certain organization will have in a certain regulatory procedure. And the reason for this, it's because one organization can be a marketing authorization holder in a context, and in a different one, it can be actually being used as a sponsor or even as a manufacturer. OMS does not manage individuals, as the name says, is the organization management system. And for that reason, we will only be able to maintain and to master the individuals in case they are registered as a legal entity within the local authorities. And last but not least, OMS will not retain any department information. So if we're talking about a hospital or an academia, this will be the main name of the organization. Any departments will have to be registered if they are placed, for example, in different physical locations. One loc ID will have to be created separately to represent each of those departments. If they are, for example, all under the same location, we will only be creating one org ID and one loc ID, and any further details will have to be managed directly by each consuming system. In OMS, we have a system of versioning, but this is not the system that in the same way that, for example, RMS manages these versions. In OMS, we have what we call a version timestamp. So we have this um, this functionality. The only difference is just to highlight that we do it by timestamp. We place it first the date and then the time when was last updated. And one last note that OMS will always try to maintain the latest version of the information. So please do not submit a change request to revert to an old version of the data. Um, Now, one of the questions that we frequently receive is who can actually change the OMS data? So because OMS is a public dictionary and aim to facilitate the user, so anyone can actually submit a change to any of the organization or location that we have in our dictionary. Of course, how do we prevent any wrong data to be submitted or anything that it does not actually represent the reality? The way we do this is by requesting to have a supporting documentation when a change request is submitted, for example, so that we can, while we're doing our validation process, we are able to assess and to consult our source of information and have so that we are able to validate not only the organization but also the location details. And this here one our biggest principle this is something that I've been already talking about, but I think is very important to consolidate this idea that OMS is a standardized list of organization and location data. OMS does not aim to provide a copy of the supporting documentation that the company has. For example, OMS will not provide a copy from the National Business Registry or even other supporting documentation. OMS will need to assure that we have the correct data reflected, so the correct organization name and legal entity. Both of these pieces need to be correctly captured in OMS, always, of course, standardized following our OMS data quality standards, that we establish the correct relationship between the organization and all its addresses. Of course, those documents, we need them so that we are able to validate and to assure our data correctness and accuracy. But in a nutshell, to tell you that while we are validating and afterwards standardizing the data, it's very important to us that the user acknowledge that we will not be creating a copy in our dictionary. We will be creating a standardized list of the data that can be used by multiple regulatory systems. Now, how do we have been talking about the OMS data quality standards in a practical sense. How does this apply? So before adding any record to the dictionary, we first need to validate the organization name and the organization and location relationship with its addresses. So the data is first validated with the supporting of the information the documentation provided and verified against the source system. For organization name, we consult mostly the National Business Registry. We use this as a validation of information. Once we validated the data, we will move on into the creation and applying our OMS data quality standards, not only to the name, but also to the legal entity type. For locations, the same steps apply. So we first need to validate that the relationship exists. And last but not least, in this case, for the locations, we use the support of our Address Doctor tool. So this is a tool that is embedded with the National Postal Service information, and that helps us ensure a good quality of the location details. Um, for the case of those records that are not recognized, certain locations that may not be recognized by the National Postal Service, we have created a set of rules to try to incorporate a couple of exceptions that we've acknowledged that they are not recognized, and we've created those standards so that we can all follow the same rules and apply them to any new possible locations that may be created. So I talked a bit about this Address Doctor tool, but just to give you a couple of notes, exactly what is this tool? So the Address Doctor is a address library used for address validation, correction, and standardization. Is a worldwide system populated with reference data covering more than 240 countries. This is the only service that combines postal certification in one engine from all 5 global postal organizations. The addresses are formatted according to the local postal standards, ensuring this way that the correct elements appear in the appropriate field. The reference, our reference databases are updated throughout the year. And last but not least, just a final point that this service also allows us to reach the address data, not only with geo coordinates, but it also supports different character sets, and it even transliterates a couple of address for, and one of these examples that we have, which is in Greek characters, or for example, in Japanese character set. Okay, and with this, we conclude our OMS key principles. Moving on into our OMS processes, mainly data stewardship and data and service desk, how the multiple activities that we perform are grouped. So in a nutshell, we have our EMA data steward, which is our OMS team. We perform mainly 3 types of tasks: data stewardship, where we have not only the change requests, but also any, for example, project-related activities where we can integrate the data, we can proceed with a couple of mappings, delta tasks to assure the integration with a couple of EMA systems. One example of this that we have, which is a daily integration between SAP, both SAP and SME. We have a daily integration with OMS. After this data stewardship, we have also a data quality management activities, where we perform not only quality control, quality assurance, we also monitor the data quality of our records. We will review this in a couple of slides. As part of our customer service, we also use the service desk that allow us to clarify any data quality incidents, any questions that the user may have. And last but not least, we count with the support of key user group to help us handling any data quality issues, to help us develop uh, and implement any new business rules, and to create any guidance to support our customer. As I mentioned, one of the gateways that we use for customer service is the service desk. This service desk, at a glance, in a nutshell, how does this work? Because the user only see the initial and the end of the process, but we have a couple of steps involved in the meantime. So the user reports a ticket or creates a call with our system. This call is first triaged by the service desk. When this triage happen, um, there may be, if this is very important, if the request is not created in the dedicated session, in the right session, then it means that during this triage, which normally happens within less than one working day, uh, internally we'll have to duplicate the original ticket. Of course, the user will receive a notification in case this happen, but just for you to be aware that the SLAs, if we have to change the type of ticket, if the ticket is not created in a dedicated place, SLAs may be impacted. That's why I leave you here a couple of examples of what entails an incident or an issue. In this case, any data quality incident or any technical incident that you may experience with the system, please use the issue login in the system. I'll give you. I have a couple of screenshots that will further help you through the system so that you can easily create without any troubles. In case of a request, when should you open a request? In case um, there is something that you need to change in our dictionary that the current change request functionality does not allow you to, such as deleting, for example, any contact details that may be outdated, um, deleting any alternative names that may not be used, or even in case you've spotted that through the export or VA API, the National Business Registry number that we may have there may not be updated, may not be the correct one. Any questions? Anything else aside from what I've mentioned should be logged in as a question, and in this case we can categorize in two mains. So data quality questions, in case you have any question related with the data quality standards, or in case you'd like to have further clarification on the outcome of a change request, or even other questions in case you have any question related to a process or how to access our system, or even to have further clarification to successfully create a change request uh, in the OMS portal. So now that we've discussed the types of tickets and calls that you can open, um, after the triage, the ticket will be assigned to the correct team. If it's a business ticket, it will be assigned to our EMI data stewards. If it's an IT, will be assigned automatically to the IT support colleagues so that they can quickly resolve your issue. And last but not least, to tell you that indeed each of these requests, they have their own service level agreement. When we talk an incident or request, we aim to provide to not only to investigate but also and or correct any necessary data that may need action. Our SLAs for both incidents and requests are of 5 working days. When we talk questions, also called requests for information, we aim to provide an answer within 22 working days. Now, just to leave you here a couple of changes that we recently have. So, beginning this week, we are now changing the way the portal that the user can use to reach us. So the service desk OMS is now in service now. So and I would like to leave you just this final note that not just to leave you the reassurance that any tickets that were open before the go live of ServiceNow, before September 12th, they will be addressed using the old system. So we're not closing, we're not forgetting. We will get back to you within our SLAs, but using the old system. So after September 12th, any tickets can only be logged to, any OMS ticket can only be logged using ServiceNow, and we will address them using the same tool. I'll leave you here the link, and as well as I'll leave you here a couple of guidances on how to log in each of our 3 types of tickets. So in case you'd like to request to place a question, which in the new system is a request for information, just follow the steps. Not to forget to populate the form with the right fields so that the ticket can reach us quicker. For incidents, I'll leave you here also the correct path so that you can successfully create report as any either data quality or IT incidents. And last but not least, in case you would like to create a request for our OMS team, I'll leave you here the path and populate. I'll let you populate the form with the information, with the details that you may need to be updated in our OMS portal. That the current change request functionality does not allow you to use. And now going to our change request process. So in a nutshell, there are 3 main stages: the submission, the validation and standardization, and the conclusion of the change request. In a nutshell, the request can submit a change request to create, update any of the data available in the system. Important not to forget the supporting documentation. This is one of the most rejections we have in our system is due to the missing supporting documentation. So very important not to forget this step. Once in the system, the EMA data steward will analyze the request. At this stage, it's important to note that the organization name and location data will be validating using the National Business Registry or even other sources. This will be done against the supporting documentation. When we conclude, once the validation process is concluded, we will proceed to the standardization of the data, and we'll follow our OMS data quality rules and the information we have from the National Postal Service. After the assessment of the change request, we can proceed to approve or to reject the change request. When is a rejection, the user will receive an email with the outcome and a brief justification or explanation on how to succeed in creating a change request in the future. If the change request is approved, the data will be automatically be visible in the portal. In terms of service level agreements, those are automatically assigned depending on the type of change request and what type of data is submitted. And that's why the data stewards prioritize the work. That's how the data steward prioritize the work on change request, and we will prioritize based on the due date. So first expired, first out. So we'll use always the one when we need to prioritize. We'll work on those that have less time on the clock. And just to give you here how an overview of how our change request form look like. We have a couple of informations that are mandatory, not to forget the attachment part, always very important. The update form is very similar. Of course, there will be a couple of pieces of information that will be already populated because those they're not interchangeable. And always the attachment option on the right hand side. And when we talk supporting documentation, what type of, because I've been talking about this, what type of supporting documentation can actually be used? So we have a very thorough guidance in our OMS portal that describe exactly this. Depending on the type of, not only on the type of change request, but depending on the jurisdiction of the organization that we're talking, that the user is trying to create or update in the OMS portal. So if we talk, for example, in a nutshell, if we're talking of an EEA country, we will always ask you for an extract from the National Business Registry, because this is the source system we use to validate the data. If we're talking, for example, an hospital, university, or even a public entity, a header letter will be sufficient for us to validate this information. This header letter should be signed and dated so that we can understand when was this document created, if it's a recent version of the data or not. And last but not least, if it's a non-EEA organization, so we simply request a document where we can see the DUNS number so that we can validate indeed against this database. In case this, because in some cases this is not available, we can also access the local National Business Registry to validate the data. And now I'll just leave you here. I'll just guide you through exactly what does this, because we've been talking about validation and standardization, just a practical case, a practical example on how we do and the steps that we perform. So we receive the change request with an organization name and the legal entity type. We validate following the supporting documentation provided. We validate against the National Business Registry. We need to assure that the organization is still valid and it still has the same name. After the validation process, we proceed into the standardization step. And what in our rules, what does it say is when we talk about a UK company, the legal entity should be limited and not LTD. And this is exactly what we do when we refer to validation and standardization. We're not changing the meaning of the data, we're just standardizing the data. The same happen at location level. So if we receive a change request with the details as displayed in the monitor will need to go ahead and check the supporting documentation, validate against the source system that the relationship exists. And last but not least, we'll use the information provided by the National Postal Service to help us reorganize the data. As you can see, we're not changing the meaning, we're not changing any value, we're just organizing and standardizing the data as it is provided by the local authorities. And as I already touched, when the change request, this is very important for us, that when a change request is rejected, the user receives information on why was it rejected and further guidance so that it does not happen again. And one last note, not to forget that um, when the user submit a change request, because currently the 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 tool that we have does not allow the user to update any change request that has been submitted. That's why we reinforce, and I keep mentioning that, not forget to submit supporting documentation, because if you realize you forgot, for example, this step while submitting a change request, you cannot go back. You'll have to wait for the change request to be rejected so that you'll be allowed to recreate the change request. And the reason for this is that, for example, for updates, you can only submit one change at a time. So you'll have to wait for us to process to be able to change it. The system does not allow to have two updates happening at the same time, because most of, imagine that we can have two organizations that are trying to update um, the organization name of a manufacturer. This will be double work for both for internal team and the user, and there's no need for us to have double work. That's why we've developed this functionality to allow one change only at a time. And after approval, as I mentioned, the data is automatically published and it can be used within an hour by all the OMS consuming systems. Moving on into the OMS data quality management, how do we maintain and how do we assure high quality of the information? What process do we have in place to do so? And this happened mainly through two main process, one proactive and another one reactive. The reactive, which is through the data quality incidents that we receive using the tool that we've already seen, Service Desk, and now the new tool called ServiceNow. And when we receive this, once we identify that is indeed a data quality incident, we'll log them as a data quality defect. Another way to log an incident as a data quality defect is by actively monitor the tasks, all the tasks that we perform. Because we've seen before that we not only handle change requests, we also handle all types of other tasks, such as ETLs and deltas. And to all this that we do on the day-to-day basis, we do a quality control. 20% of all the tasks are inspected, and afterward we still do a quality second pass, which we call a quality assurance, where we try to understand. We use this process to, if needed, to refine any rule that we may have that it's not clear, or even to identify, to use it as a root cause assessment to prevent it, the same error, to happen over and over again. Another proactive way that we have to identify any possible data quality defect is through the data profiling. We have a system that helps us identify in case any record that is published and is published against our OMS data quality rules. And this system helps us doing this on the day-to-day basis. And we'll be talking about this data quality defects. We've Once we catalog them, we can categorize them as major or minor, depending on the criticality of those data quality of those incidents. And now that we've seen the theory, if we look at the numbers, the OMS numbers, we can see that in the overall, we are way within our established data quality parameters, because throughout the year of 22, so these are the numbers that we performed since the beginning of the year. We have received only 81 data quality incidents, and this considering that we had significant volume when we talk not only service desk, as well when we talk data service and even change requests. We were one of those proactive ways that we have to monitor the data that we use to monitor is through the data profiling. So we know that we have deviation to our rules, to our standards, and we know that this happen when we have in our dashboards, we have it visible that a dashboard appear in red. And this is exactly what we try to prioritize. When something like this happen, we'll try to prioritize that activity. In case something appears in the yellow level, this will be our next priority. And we'll later on work on the greens until we reach the score of 100%. Okay. Those that you've seen in the previous slide are individual scorecards, of course, to assure a high level of data quality and those data in the well-known data quality attributes. We use those individual scorecards to allow us to display the general, both at organization and location, what are the quality that we have in each of these attributes. Looking now into what we have been doing since the beginning of the year and what each of these activities represent. So since the beginning of the year, we've seen an increase in our dictionary. This was mainly due to the recent mandate use of OMS, not only in EAF, but also with the integration since the beginning of the year of UPD, Elder GMDP, and CTIS. And this was mainly reflected here in our change requests. So since the beginning of the year, we had an increase of almost 200% of our change requests. So 200% compared with the whole last year of 2021. This, as I mentioned, was due to the recent integration with our systems. And of course, if we keep going with the same level at the end of this year, we'll be performing 4 times more change requests than the previous year. And last but not least, we've been able to doing this all this with double in the half a year, with double of change requests, and always closing them in time. There was not one single change request that we've closed outside our established service level agreement. Of course, when we look at the full picture, the change request is just a very small uh, window of everything that we do, but uh, it doesn't mean that it's less important. No, no doubt there. Um, another activity that we still uh, would like to improve, and we've seen this that in the last 2 quarters of 2022, we've seen an increase of rejected change requests, and this is a trend that we are currently working and would like to definitely revert this. It was something that of course, it was with all the integrations, with all the new systems that we're bringing, it brings um, a high number of new users that are still unfamiliar with our process and our OMS data quality standards. But when we look at the rejections itself, as I mentioned, the 64% of the rejected change requests are due to the missing supporting documentation. Uh, we and to tackle this, to try to reduce this, um, we are looking to develop new functionalities. One of them that should be deployed very soon, which is a pop-up warning message every time a user tries to submit a change request without the supporting documentation. We'll hope to have this helping both users and internal team to reduce this missing supporting these numbers, as well, of course, reducing the rejected change requests. And later on, uh, would like to implement a return functionality, because currently, if there's something that is missing, if there's a piece of information that we do not have, such as supporting documentation, the only way we have is to reject it, and would like to have the chance to return and to ask more information to the user, and this is exactly what we'd like to implement. Um, in term the other core the biggest chunk of work that we've been doing into 2020 is the data services. This is almost we are half. These are data from Q1 and Q2. So during the first half of the year, we perform almost as much tasks as the whole year of last year. So, and this work came exactly from the conclusion of the integration with the other GMDP, um, as well as the implementation of the daily integration between SME and SAP. Um, Additionally, we also did a currency check. So we checked more than 10,000 records that have not been updated for the past 2 years. And this activity resulted in a deactivation of 22% of these 10,000 records. This activity seemed to be very positive and very efficient. So next year we aim to repeat this. Of course, the volumes will not be as higher, but we think it was a very positive outcome. So we intend to continue with this activity from now on. And last but not least, this is an ongoing. It's an open task. It is a constant improvement, which is to work on a data quality assurance and monitoring our OMS data profiling dashboards. And one of these activities that actually came from here was exactly the currency that we checked. We keep validating that our rules are being correctly implemented, and that we're not publishing anything that goes outside our OMS data quality rules. And last but not least, our service desk. So again, comparing with last year, we had a small increase. Of course, we're comparing the work performed in 2 quarters versus the whole year of last year, and this to us it was due to the recent integration with the multiple OMS consuming system, the mandate of the OMS in those systems. If we keep going with the same speed, by the end of this year, we expect to double our calls. But looking at service desk into perspective, despite the significant increase of change requests, close to 200%, the service desk tickets raised by the user only marginal increase. So we're talking an increase on change requests of 200%, and on the service desk only 12%. And all this, our service desk tickets also been addressed within the established SLA. Those that the SLA compliance was impacted mainly by the number of IT incidents. Most of those issues reported under that category actually require IT investigation by a different team. And this, of course, it creates a block for our team to be able to provide a quicker response to some of those data quality incidents. But in a nutshell, when we look at the full picture, when we talk data quality incidents, we'll talk only 1% 1% of incidents in the whole world of tasks and whole world of exchange that we've performed throughout half of the year of 2022. And last but not least, just last year we've run a survey to where we got more than 200 responses. Our users, I was happy to see that our users classify OMS as a satisfactory level, and I would like you to keep an eye, because we'll be launching a new customer service next month. So feel free to let us know your thoughts about our SPOR system. In terms of OMS projects and where we are, so OMS is now being used throughout a couple of different projects when we talk throughout the life cycle of the medicinal product. Some of those systems we can include IRIS platform, other GMDP, CTIS, EAF at the moment only for centralized products, as well as UPD. This is now mandatory in those. The use of OMS is now mandatory for these 5 systems. And to reinforce that the data used at each of the system will not be a copy from the supporting documentation. It will be data enriched with our OMS data quality standards. So, for example, any manufacturing lines, any department information, this will have to be maintained at consuming system level. In terms of future, what are current activities that the OMS is focused and future planned activities? So as part of our regulatory service, we'll continue with our data stewardship tasks and service desk tasks. We aim to improve always our data quality profiles. That's why we've also onboarded a new team to help us and to dedicate even more time creating more um, and updated profiles so that we can closer monitor all our rules and maintaining and continue with the improvement of those rules. Um, in terms of customer experience and awareness, so we continue publishing new and updated guidances. One that we recently created and published, which is the OMS news items. So this is a document that we aim to constantly update. This will be probably be the document that will be more updated throughout the time. And what will this document aim? To any change to our business rules, any change to our process, uh, any change at all that happened in OMS, we will publish there. So in case you'd like to understand what has been happening in OMS world, this should be the document. This should be the place that you'll go in case you'd like to understand what's happening, if what type of discussions are coming, what type of functionalities should you expect in the future. All this is available in this document. Um, and of course, we continue with our OMS improvements. We continue with bug fixing. We continue improving our uh, system to we always with the aim to improve the customer experience, and this is something that we've already touched base, which is this warning message to not to forget to attach a supporting documentation and the return functionality. We're also looking into a better way to simplify the OMS user access. We know that is not a very easy process, and we are working into find a better solution to simplify this process to our customer. And we are here today in our OMS webinar. As I mentioned, next month you should expect, if you are a SPOR user, you should expect an invitation to participate in our customer satisfaction survey. And next year we'll meet again in our in a new webinar. And how will OMS contribute in the future in any upcoming projects? So as part of the PMS, OMS to support the PMS, or OMS will is currently developing a Delta task. What does it mean? It means that any change that happen at XCVMPD in Article 57, we will receive them and we will process them in 5 working days so that PMS will be able to see and to have this information ready and available to work. And last but not least, our OMS ECD feedback loop. This is an internal integration that will help colleagues that work with centralized procedure to start using internally OMS data, since the external user is already using this data every time they populate the EAF form. And with this, I would like to open the floor for any questions.
My name is Marcelo Namishas. I'm working from the digital workplace. We have been working on the transition from services from Jira to ServiceNow. In this demonstration, I will provide you with a quick overview of how the system was implemented. I will show you where you can get the training material. I will then perform a quick demonstration of the customer portal and the mobile phone app before we open the floor for question and answer sessions through Slido. So, as an overview, we have implemented different stages in order to transition everything from from Jira to ServiceNow. The first stage includes the customer portal, the IT incidents and IT service request, and the mobile app. That means that we will have two platforms working in parallel. We will have the old Jira, the old Jira Service Desk, with change management and non-IT incidents and requests, as well as all the backlog of IT cases. So, for example, if you created a case before the transition, that will remain in Jira. So you will be able to see it, follow it up, and the backend agents will work on it still in Jira. So you will get your resolution in Jira. We are not migrating tickets as such. And the other platform will be ServiceNow, containing new IT incidents and IT requests. Further on, we will proceed with different stages where we will be moving more services. We went live with the new platform on the 12th of September, last Monday. And the link can be accessible through Jira, the old platform, or through the corporate website. Let me show you that. Well, I will show you that in a minute. The training material, it is a video of 5 minutes that it can be accessible through the platform called Vimeo with a specific password. You can find that information in the old EMA service desk, the one that is hosted in Jira. Probably you're familiar with this one. So this is the landing page. In here, let me make it a bit bigger so everyone can see it. In here, you have some information about the transition of services. You have the link to the new platform, the new ServiceNow platform, and then you have a link and the password that I mentioned on my presentation for a 5-minute video to familiarize yourself with the portal. I recommend everyone to go through it. The services that have been migrated, they are the ones on the service desk area of the portal, and they are like services like access permissions and content update, user link account, additional software, and IT equipment. Well, the thing is, I'm looking at this with my profile, and I have a lot of services that perhaps you guys don't have, depending on the permissions. But this is just to highlight that some services have been moved. When we go into report an issue, we have also some services over here, like report an issue with a business application or software that has been migrated. The new platform looks like this. Let me. Okay, this is my profile. So I have again some services that not everyone will have. But as an introduction, you have over here some. You have a banner with some information for all the users. In this case, we are giving the welcome and showing some knowledge-based articles where you can find some documentation for the portal. Let me impersonate someone external so you can see what kind of services or how the portal will look for external users. In here, you have the EMA icon that also acts as a home page. So wherever you are, you click in here and you always come to this page. Task, an area where you can see all the activity that it is pending your action. Request is where you can see cases that you have created in the past, and they are either open or closed. And you can use this to see what it is the current status, comments, and to confirm closure or to reopen them if you're not satisfied with the resolution. At the moment, this user don't have any, so I cannot show you. I can go back to myself, and I can show you one that I have over here, so you can see how it looks. And in here, you can see the different statuses that they were already, and so on. So you can see if there's an attachment, the notes, and if there are any people watching. I will come back to the watch list in a minute. If I go back to my user, over here, you have a category. In this case, we have IT and other. Other services will be added later on as we progress with the transition from Jira to ServiceNow. The other is basically links back to Jira. So if you're over here and you wanted to go into the VMP, you can click in here and it take you back to Jira. There is another link at the back over here to go back to the service desk, to Jira service desk. If you click over here, you will see a list of options like applications, accounts, report an issue, ask a question. And when you go into the applications, there are different categories. So if I click on sport, for example, there are all the different services that are related to sport. These services will be amended as we progress with the transition of services from Jira to ServiceNow, and this is kind of a dynamic. On the top, there is a search option where you can just type elements, and then the relevant service request or incident or knowledge base articles will appear. So for example, in this case, we have a couple of services related with access. And if there are any knowledge base articles related, will also appear, depending on the permissions that you have, obviously. If I go back to the home screen, I can show, for example, a form to show you how it looks. So if I want access to, I don't know, a user link account, you have over here a form that you can complete. And then when you click on submit, the case will be created. Obviously, there are some fields that are mandatory, and these are represented with a red star. And every service has a description, so you know what it is about. In this area, there are a window where you can see your active items and if there is any survey pending. At the bottom of the page, we have some footer with useful information, including the system status. So in here, you can see if there is any planned maintenance or if there is currently any system down or anything like that. That concludes the brief demonstration of the customer portal. I will now continue with the mobile phone. So I'm on my mobile phone now, and I will see if I can share my screen. Share content, screen, start broadcasting. Yeah, you should be able to see my screen now. You can download this application called Now Mobile, which is the one on the top left corner. You can download it for iOS or for Android or for different operating systems. Once that you click on it, you will have to log in into the application using your EMA credentials, the same credentials that you will use for the customer portal, and you will have to put the URL for the instance, which it is support.ema.europa.eu. I can copy that on the chat. Let me just put that on the chat. There you go. On the mobile app, you also have the search option on the top where you can search for services or knowledge bases. You have a welcome message. You have over there the tasks, the requests that you created on the past. You can report issues or you can see surveys, similar way as you could see on the browser portal. At the bottom, you have over here some telephone numbers that you can call directly from your mobile phone by clicking on the number for emergencies. So if you have an urgent technical matter, you can just click on that number and the member of the IT service desk will be able to assist you. If I go into the bottom bar, that is a home, and next to it there is services. I can see over here all the services that I have permissions to see in the same way as a web portal. So I can click over here, for example, applications, and I have as well the sport, and I have all the different services for sport over here when I can click and complete the form. I forgot to mention before that on the web portal and as well on the mobile phone app, you have a category called watch list. The watch list, you can add a colleague of yours over there, and that act as a backup, let's say. So if you create a request or an incident, and then, I don't know, for some reason you cannot look after that, you can nominate a colleague as a watch list member to follow up on that. So that person will receive the notifications and will be able to add comments in the case same as you. At the bottom, we have, in this case, the urgency. The urgency that you select together with the impact that the service desk agent will set, that will define the priority. For the attachment, you will have to browse the attachment on your device to add it. So it's not like in the previous system where you can copy paste. In here, you have to browse the attachment. I think that concludes the brief demonstration of the mobile phone app. So if someone put on the screen the Slido, I will be able to answer any questions.
Okay, I can read out the questions for you, Marcelo, if that's all right.
Yeah, so I was just seeing a very tiny screen.
Okay, so I will read it out. So the question number 1, how do you access the new service Now Help after adding at id.ema.europa.eu to my username? It does not appear to accept the EMA password. Is there a guidance?
I can take this one, Marcelo, if you wish. I just shared in the chat a guideline how to set up properly an email account if the user doesn't have one, and if there are issues with the credentials, how to reset the password. The links are available in our chat.
Would you like me to share my screen and demonstrate how that is done? Or everyone will be able to do that by themselves by just going to the link?
As you wish. If we want to do a quick demonstration, maybe it can help.
Sorry, Carmen, are you demonstrating or shall I demonstrate?
Sorry, no, if you go ahead, I will.
Okay. Let me then share my screen. Right. So the link that Carmen mentioned, it is register.ema.europa.eu. It takes you to this page. Can everyone see my screen? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, you look like I am sharing. Okay. In here, you can reactivate your account. You can set your passwords, and you can manage your account and settings. Now, there is also some documentation that you can access. For example, in here, there is how to log in into EMA systems. When you click in there, you have a very detailed guide on including screenshots and stuff like that, that explain step by step how to do it. Like, for example, over here you have to add your surname plus your initial with the ID, so your username basically, with the at id.ema.europa.eu, as it was mentioned on the question. And then there is the password that if you don't have, you can reset on the previous screen that I showed before. Then there is the multi-factor authentication element. So this guy is very nice because it's with screenshot and step-by-step explaining everything that how to log in. So for example, here is how to download that authentication app. And so on. So I will advise everyone to go and read this documentation because this will help you logging in into the EMA systems. To give you an idea, once that you try to log in into the EMA service, so into the ServiceNow portal, you will be presented with a screen like that. And in here, we also have some information about that you have to use your username followed by the ID domain. Hopefully this answers the question and provide you enough guidance to follow up the steps and find your way to log in. Right, should we continue with the slide?
Yes, I think majority of the questions here is regarding the instructions because of the add ID. So as I said, Marcelo just provided the guidance how to do it. If you have any other issues with that, I think, Carmen, you have a dedicated email address for this. I think you have mentioned before. So maybe you would like
Yes.
to, yeah. So
And indeed, I can also see, sorry, just in the chat, someone else is stating that they tried the steps shared in the guideline, but it didn't work. So I would suggest again to send us an email to the email channel shared also into the chat with some screenshots, and we will investigate further on your behalf. Thank you.
okay, thank you. So I think we should not address this any longer. We have another question regarding the API. What category in ServiceNow would be the insertion of a new API, not IT, but also not other?
I think if I may, I think this question is related with the Spore API. And for this, I would like to invite you to place your question because we will have a dedicated webinar that will be provided by our colleagues. Our service delivery manager will be the one providing the training. Miriam, can you please remind me the date? Do we already have a date for this webinar to take
For
place?
API?
Yes.
Yes, we will have the webinar 11th of October in the afternoon.
11
We just
October.
have
Okay.
updated we have just requested
Perfect.
this to be updated, so you can find the link probably
Okay.
in a few days on
Exactly.
external website, so you can register for this.
Yeah, perfect. So I kindly ask you to please for any further information to have to go to this webinar. In the meantime, if you really need this access, I advise you to create a SPOR request, and we'll handle internally. If needed, we'll create another ticket on your behalf to help you with this. So just to tell you, if you really need this information, just create a ticket and internally we'll handle it the best we can. Yeah.
Okay, there is another question, which is, should we need an EMA account to access the service now?
Yes, you need to be registered with EMA in order to access ServiceNow.
Okay, there's another question, I think, Carmen, that would be, what is the email address, which I kind of understand to email address to ServiceNow for the support. So maybe if you would like to share it again in a chat, would be great.
Yes, sure. I'll do
Thank
it.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
And okay, I unmute myself and I speak. Sorry, it's not clear to me if ServiceNow fully replaced Jira as of now. So can you please clarify this, if what is actually happening?
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry if I was not very clear at the beginning. Jira contains a lot of different projects and services and a lot of things. We need to move away from Jira, and ServiceNow is the tool that it was selected for IT, and we are moving gradually. So stage one, as I mentioned before, is for the IT services and the portal and the mobile app and the configuration management database and so on. But in stage two, we will add another services, maybe facilities management, maybe some of the business services, change management, discovery tool. So we will be adding additional features. In stage three, we will be adding more. And so there is a gradual progression to the transition from Jira to ServiceNow. By February 2024, we should stop using Jira, but it will remain as an archive environment. So the information will not be lost. It will still remain in there, but not as a active environment, but more as an archive instance. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, the majority of questions is regarding not being able to log on. There is one question regarding the troubleshooting. The username or password is incorrect. The best option at the moment is to basically use the option forgot password and basically get a new password that I have got confirmed. So please try that if possible. And then we have another one regarding the error message. I don't know if you want to address this, Marcelo, or shall this be something that should be raised via ServiceNow, via the email address?
That looks strange, that error message. It would be good to see a screenshot. If you could send that particular issue with a screenshot either to the email address that Carmen shared or by creating a ServiceNow incident, if you have access, that will be very helpful.
I think Marcelo is weird that email address that appears like that. The one who typed this Microsoft error message in Slido, did you try to click on the link, the URL that we shared in the chat? We just shared it again. Can you please try and let us know?